Yeah.
But this is where shit, like, it goes from we ended slavery to now just right back into just
awful.
racism.
Really?
Not slavery, but just every law against them.
Subjugation, it became the same obsession as before.
Yeah.
But without slavery, it just became all about not letting them vote, keeping them off the
And that goes
ballot.
all the way up until, like, now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we're
just yesterday.
2018.
We figured it out
we
yesterday.
figured it out yesterday. Thank God.
Yeah.
Finally,
Today,
Arkansas.
we got a nice little nation.
Yeah. Louisiana cleaned up their act a little.
True.
And Alabama.
My favorite president, just jumping way the fuck
Yeah.
ahead, is Nixon is my favorite.
Dude, he's awesome.
He's the best. And again, as a character,
Yes.
Nixon gave the country one great gift that I wish was like, I wish it was taught, like the speech that Lincoln has on his monument and the ask not what your country and all that shit. The greatest thing that he did, because it speaks more to what Americans live, is that when Nixon was shamed and destroyed and had to leave office, he had to fucking resign. He had to give, after a couple of I'm not a crook and this is all bullshit, he had to go and say, well,
all right,
I'm going to go. And
still not a cook, but I'm going to get out of here.
Gerald Ford would take the oath of office at this time in this office. And he left. But before he left, he gave a speech to his staff, to the White House staff that was impromptu. It was just on his way to the helicopter. And he's copiously crying in the speech. There's video of it that you can see. You have to try to find the whole thing because there's clips that you can find on YouTube. But I actually ordered from C-SPAN a DVD of the whole speech, and they're all bawling, the whole staff, and his family standing behind him. And he just tells them, "Look, don't." He's encouraging them. He said, "This is a tough moment for all of us." He said, "First of all, I don't want to discourage young people from being in public service." He was afraid of what would happen.
Has happened.
Yes.
He was right.
He said, don't be discouraged from public office. It's a great calling. And he said, and for any mistakes that we made and all everything that's happened, not one person in this administration gained financially from anything, from being here. Left richer than when they got here. He made it first, so he defended everybody that was there, and then he just starts reflecting. He reads from Teddy Roosevelt's autobiography, from his diary, when Teddy's wife and mother died at the same night. They both died of cholera or whatever on the same night. He was going from one room to the other.
Oh yeah,
and they both died, and he was like at 21 or something, and he wrote this quote that was like, "The light has gone out, and it'll be darkness forever." And he said, he read it to his staff, and he said that's how he felt, having lost his wife and his mom. And he went on and had this incredible life. So he's trying to say, he says, no, don't be discouraged, never be petty, don't hate your enemies, because that's when you'd start to destroy yourself. He gets it really introspective about everything that happened without talking about it. And then he says, it's horrible. He goes, he says, they'll never write a book about my mother, but she was a saint.
Oh, man.
And I think of her, like, one of his brothers had tuberculosis, and they had no money, so she moved to Arizona where the air was better. And she was a nurse, wet nurse. She nursed other people's babies for money in order that her son could live in Arizona. And he talks about his father, who was a lemon farmer, who had a failing lemon farm, and then he was a switchman on a streetcar. And he just talks about his parents and what they did for him and all that shit. He just cries. Oh, it's fucking beautiful. But it shows you a man at the height of American experience, destroyed from that height, which is the worst thing that can happen to a person, is to get that high and fall. And he just went, here's how this feels. He just told the world, this is how this feels. This is what this looks like. Yeah. And here's all I can say. And then he went and then he left. Incredible. I mean, he was one of the most influential people in American history.
Yeah. He ended Vietnam, right?
Yes.
That was already about done.
He was fucking Eisenhower's vice president.
There's a guy we know that's bit of a conspiracy guy, but he's been pretty correct on everything so far. And he's got a book coming out on Watergate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And about how that was a little darker than it seemed.
So
his
I knew a guy back when I was first living in the city as a comedian. There was a guy named Frank Gannon who had Frank Gannon wrote speeches for Nixon and was a very close friend of his. And weirdly, he became the guy who books the comedians on Letterman. And when I moved to New York back in 1990 or so, being on Letterman was all anybody wanted. So Gannon was the most important person in comedy at the time. And he was a strange guy who was very serious. And he would just come and he'd watch you. And if he liked you, he'd get Morty to come and maybe you'd be on the show. So he liked me. He never got me on the show, but he liked me. So I went to Letterman's office and met him. And I asked him about Nixon because he wrote, Nixon has one big biography called RN that Gannon co-wrote. And he told me that when you get a few drinks in Nixon, he says, the same people that got the Kennedys got me. It's the same people that got, he said it's the same machine that took out John and Robert,
Kennedy
came after him. He said they just couldn't use bullets anymore because it was getting too... They were
That's
on
exactly what we said. We said that without him.
Watergate was. He said Watergate was something that happened all the time. It was just like, and still does. I mean, it's not like oh my goodness. It's how things are done. Yeah, it's a safe with $1 million in it. What president doesn't have a safe with $1 million?
Yeah. It was.
So that's Nixon's story. That was Nixon's story. He didn't say it in public, because the same as he conceded the presidency to Kennedy, which Kennedy stole. I mean, everyone knows that his father took suitcases of money to delegations and stole the presidency, and Nixon knew it, and he was like, "I'm not gonna. This is not good for the country to get into it." That's why he resigned instead of standing trial, and that's why he doesn't talk about that's the story, you know.
Yeah. That's a good most interesting president.
Most interesting, I think, to me. Yeah, I mean, Johnson was also a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
Johnson was, and Reagan was kind of an empty-headed genius, incredible, knows how to just be. As long as somebody else is in the room, Reagan was brilliant. But I'm not sure he had any thoughts. You know what I mean? There's people like that.
Yeah, he was like an actor that was like, I guess I'll be a Republican while he was there. And then... Which was pretty admirable at the time, because he was actually, no, it wasn't, because that was in the middle of the Red Scare. He was like one of the guys being like, "You're a communist," and he just became the man.
My favorite film of Reagan is Larry King interviewing him after he was shot and saying, "So what do you feel about this guy?" And he said, "Well, I just pray for him. He's a sick man. He's just." You know, I found out later that he's sick. He's mentally ill. So we add him to our prayers, and we hope for the best for him. And he says it with this big.
He's like, "We're fucking that guy up." I hope he's doing good.
Yeah.
He's doing great.
Yeah.